Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? On out there, Lloyd.
Recognize royalty. Recognize royalty. Gotta recognize it. Recognize royalty. Like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
Okay, so Dr. King and from my research, has never identified himself as an African American, but he did identify himself as a Negro, maybe colored, and for sure black. So the question is, how did we go from black to African American, and why? What is the agenda behind it?
So let's be clear. When him, and this is Unbiased Ron, when him and other FBA, say they're not African American, or say they have an issue with the term African American, it's the African part that they have an issue with, right? It's the African part that they have an issue with because they feel like they're not really African. They've had an ethnogenesis and they're not African anymore. So it's fundamentally the African part that he's objecting to in the term African American. But let's hear some more.
Believe in yourself and believe that you're somebody. As I said to the group last night, nobody else can do this for us. No document can do this for us. I come here tonight, an Emancipation Proclamation can do this for us. No Kennisonian or Johnsonian Civil Rights Bill can do this for us. If the Negro is to be free, he must move down into the inner resources of his own soul and...
Okay, so he used the word Negro. What else?
Sign with a pen and ink of self-assertive manhood his own Emancipation Proclamation. Don't let anybody take your manhood. Be proud of our heritage. As somebody said earlier tonight, we don't have anything to be ashamed of. Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in language. They made everything black, ugly, and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms of the word black.
And that's why everybody rejected the term. Okay, and then we took on the term and redefined it as something other than those synonyms. You dig?
It's always something degrading and low and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure, high, and clean. But I want to get the language right tonight. I want to get the language so right that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black, I'm proud of it, I'm black and beautiful.
I'm black and beautiful. Dr. King, he didn't say I'm African American and proud, I'm African American and beautiful. He said I'm black and proud, I'm black and beautiful.
So again, his fight against African American is a fight against African. It's just part of a bigger fight. Fighting against being called African American is part of a bigger fight of fighting against being called African. That's the part that FBA is really against. Again, they're either native to America, they're either indigenous to America, or if they came here on a slave boat, they had an ethnogenesis. And that ethnogenesis makes them not African. So it's a fight against being African. And then we should be clear on that. When he says MLK never referred to himself as African American, what he means to say is that he never referred to himself as African. He used Negro, he used Black, he used this and that, but never African. But he says it in terms of African American. But what he really means is African. So I asked ChatGPT, just to be clear, are there any quotes of Martin Luther King referring to himself as African American or having African ancestry? Because I think both of those are the same fight. One is just bigger than the other. But it's really about, did he refer to himself as an African? Did Martin Luther King acknowledge that he was an African? Because fundamentally what Unbiased Moron is trying to do is to say that he didn't really see himself as an African, which is why he never called himself African American. That's what he's trying to say. So the question is, are there any quotes of Martin Luther King referring to himself as African American or having African ancestry? Short answer, Martin Luther King Jr. did not call himself African American. The term wasn't widely adopted until the late 1980s. Right, so that would be the the obvious reason or the natural reason why MLK wouldn't call himself an African American, because the term wasn't being used like that at that time. It just was not. The terms that he was using, Black, Negro, those are the terms that were being used. So that's why he was using those terms. But had he lived in, Jesse Jackson's time, because Jesse is really the one that made the term popular. But had Martin Luther King lived in Jesse Jackson's time, during that time when Jesse, introduced African American as the term, then MLK would also have been using the term African American. There's no doubt in my mind, especially if he acknowledged his African ancestry. So let's see if ChatGPT goes into that. It says, however, so let me read it again. Martin Luther King Jr. did not call himself African American. The term wasn't widely adopted until the late 1980s. However, he explicitly acknowledged African ancestry, African origins, and Africa as part of Black identity in several speeches and writings. And that last piece is important. Africa as part of Black identity. So you can't be Black without being African. Even MLK saw that. And this guy doesn't seem to see the difference. He's trying to say Black means not African. And that's the total opposite of what ChatGPT just said MLK considered or thought of the word, or the idea of Black identity. Below are verifiable quotes where MLK refers to African ancestry or African origins, even while using the language of his era, Negro, Black man. Quotes where MLK references African ancestry or Africa. 1. Quote, roots in Africa. Martin Luther King Jr. acknowledged African origins directly. He said, quote, the Negro is not an alien in American society. He is not here because of his own choice. He was brought here involuntarily from Africa and enslaved, end quote. And that's from the Ethical Demands for Integration speech in 1962. It says this is a clear statement of African origin and forced migration. 2. Africa is part of Black historical identity. He said, quote, before the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth, we were here. Before Jefferson etched the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence across the pages of history, we were here. For more than 2 centuries, our forebears labored here without wages. They were stripped of their language, their culture, and their African heritage. So again, he points to African heritage. The first part of his speech, where he says, before Jefferson etched the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence, we were here. He says, before the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth Rock, we were here. What is he talking about there? Is that MLK being pseudo? Well, in my view, it would depend on who this we is that he's referring to. Right? And we would have to kind of get more into depth into what he's talking about there. But the point of this video is just to acknowledge that he acknowledged his African heritage and saw it as part of his Black identity. And that was from the speech, Our God is Marching On, from 1965. And so number 3, Africa as a source of pride, not shame. Africa as a source of pride. So let's see if the same way he saw himself as Black and proud, let's see if he saw himself as African and proud, or proud of his African heritage. Let's see. He says, quote, "We should not be ashamed of our African past. It is a past rich in culture and achievement." Okay, so that's being proud of his past. So there's no doubt. So he's not just Black and proud, he saw himself as African and proud, and he saw the two terms as being synonymous. Number 4, global Black identity linked to Africa. The struggle of the American Negro is part of the struggle for freedom of people of color all over the world. And that's from Where Do We Go From Here in 1967. While not using African American, he situates Black Americans in a global Africa-centered diaspora. Number 5, Africa and the Black freedom struggle. The independence of Ghana is symbolic of the emancipation of oppressed people everywhere. That's his speech after attending Ghana's independence. MLK personally traveled to Africa and publicly linked African liberation to Black American identity. And it says, here's what ChatGPT gave me as some important context. Let's just check them out real quick. It says, African American as a term became common after MLK's death, popularized in the late 80s in the Jesse Jackson era. In MLK's time, Negro was the standard formal term, not a rejection of African ancestry. MLK rejected racial inferiority, not African origins. He consistently framed Black Americans as descendants of Africa, a people with stolen history, part of a global African-descended struggle. And if that is true, if we try to make sense of when he says we were here before the Pilgrims and we were here before, the Declaration of Independence, for these two ideas to reconcile, when he says we were here before the Pilgrims, he must be still implying that we still came from Africa, right? The same way the Aboriginals in Australia still have African roots. Whoever would be Aboriginal here that MLK was referring to would still have to have African roots. And that's the only way to reconcile both of what he's saying and to make sense of it. So it says the bottom line, MLK did not call himself African American. MLK clearly affirmed African ancestry, and MLK linked African Americans to Africa historically, culturally, and politically. So whatever agenda this man has with, or that FBA has with promoting this idea that MLK didn't see himself as African American, is just like a liar's agenda or an ignorant person's agenda. It's just an agenda built out of ignorance, and it should be addressed as such. So, Unbiased Moron, when MLK said,
somebody told a lie one day,
he was talking about you. He was talking about you, trying to make it seem as if the fact that he didn't use the word African American means he didn't see himself as an African.
somebody told a lie one day.
He was talking about you, trying to make it seem as if when he said he's Black and he's proud, that means that he could not also, or that he was not proud to be African and proud. When he said,
they couched it in language.
He was talking about what you're trying to do with the word black and trying to say FBA are the only black. He was talking about you. Y'all want to do what y'all are doing? Knock yourselves out. But just leave MLK out of it. He wasn't rocking with y'all. He wasn't rocking with y'all. He was rocking with Africa. Anyway, that's it for this one, y'all. You know the routine. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. All of that blesses me. And you done know. I'm gonna catch you on the next one. Peace.
Recognize royalty, recognize it, recognize royalty. Gotta recognize it, recognize royalty. Like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
I can feel,
recognize royalty.
I can see,
Recognize royalty.
now I recognize
Royalty.
royal to these eyes.
Royalty.
I can see,
Recognize royalty.
I can love again.
Recognize royalty.
Now I
Recognize it.
royalty,
I recognize
royalty.
passion. Never just the man with the title in his hand, with the vital in his hand, with the Bible in his hand. You never just the man with the scepter in demand, with the lecture in the stand, with the vector and the candle. Can you understand the grand from the texture of the hand? Hard at work, are you hard at work? Working with the man, don't kiss the ring of royalty. Crown him king, just a thing, letting loyalty ring. Bring frankincense and myrrh and other things. As gold already blings from the highest that prizes no sins. Recognize the king's overruling commandments with the Trinity and the power it brings. When you recognize royalty, I feel it.
I can see you.
Yeah, I see it.
Now
I recognize now.
royal to these eyes.
Royalty,
I can see you.
I see it.
I can love again.
Now I'm in love now. I recognize your passion.
Royalty.
Recognize royalty, sunrise royally. Sitting on top of the world, I'm five morally. Status of a king for surely. Orally, we pop dumb things till we stop the impurity. We pop them just for recognition. Listen to the missionary on a mission with the visionary vision. Do you recognize intuition? I reel in men when I went out fishing. I'll tell you why they rocked the boat. Cause they didn't understand what the prophet wrote. What's the conniption? To choose the Jews' crucifixion and refuse recognition at son child's christening. In the mix, some and some insist they fix the system from malarkey back to my monarchy. Yeah, back above me. Don't soil my purple and blue, and I will recognize your royalty too.
I can feel you.
I feel it.
I can see you.
I can see it.
Now
I recognize now
royal to these eyes.
your royalty.
I can see you.
I see it.
I can love again.
And I'm in love now.
Now
I recognize your passion.
royalty.
Royalty.